Guys, coffee time is over. We're over here now. So this is what it says. Zehu antu chad v'lo b'chushban. Going back to what we said, you are one without calculation. Right? This was from the beginning of the Maimer, revisiting this. From Pasach Eliyahu. You are one without calculation. She'enu nimna b'chlala yud sfiros, which means the one that we're talking about, if it's beyond calculation, what does it really mean? It means it's not counted amongst the 10 spheros. That's the calculation, and this is a one which is not amongst them. And B'kai al Keser Elyon, it refers to Keser, which is not counted amongst the 10 spheros. How'd that go?
Susa's coming, I'm dining for Abraham.
Okay. Kai al Keser Elyon hamamutza ben amatzi l'netzalim. And what is this Keser Elyon? It's the sphere which is an mamutza, an intermediary between the matzil, the emanator, and the netzalim, the emanated. In other words, between the orin sof and the world of Atzilus. So this Keser Elyon is an intermediary between them. She'ein aruch alav klal. And what's the story? Because this one is in no way comparable to the 10 spheros at all. That's what it means. Antu chad v'lo b'chushban. You are one without calculation. Means it can't be not only counted as one of the spheros. It's not even reckoned amongst them because it's in a completely different ballpark. Kis havus a chochma makethe hi mi'ayin mamish. And this is what we touched on yesterday, because chochma from keser is called yesh me'ayin mamish. Right? Chochma me'ayin timatza. We said chochma comes from nothing. V'lo kaseder ishtalshlus. It's not like all the other spheros come from the sphere above them, which is called in a way of ila va'alul, cause and effect, or seder ishtalshlus. What is cause and effect? Seder ishtalshlus. So let's start with one. Seder ishtalshlus is called a chain, because the idea of a chain is that you have two links, and the higher link is inside of and dips down into the lower link, which means there's a piece of the higher world in the lower, or the higher sphera in the lower sphera. Right? So that's why we call them links, because they're all linked together, because it actually the lower realm has a piece, a significant piece, the lowest aspect of the higher realm inside, like links. We also call this ila va'alul, cause and effect, because every effect has some element of the cause inside of it. Right? Like if you hit, I don't know, when I was in philosophy school, you know, when you hit one pool ball and it grabs and hits another one, they call that cause and effect. So what's the story? The energy, which was in the first one, it gets transferred into the second one, and now it gave it something of its own. Right? So in other words, the cause and effect model means that you actually take a piece of some element of the cause and it goes into the effect, and the effect is now running with it. But yesh ma'ayin doesn't work like that. Yesh ma'ayin, which is how chochma comes from keser, as opposed to how all the other spheres come from the sphere above them, it is yesh ma'ayin. It's not cause and effect. In other words, there's nothing of the cause inside of the effect. Nothing. And that's what it just comes out of nowhere, basically. It just appears without any visible relationship to what came before it.
Was it always detectable?
Detectable and... Okay.
Was it always there? Is it beyond, I don't know, I mean, is it like Hayat view? Something like that?
Was what always there?
Chochma.
No, it comes yesh ma'ayin.
Comes from nowhere.
Comes from nowhere.
So it wasn't always there.
Right, that's what we're saying.
Idea of Chochma or Chochma?
But that nowhere is God. It came from.
Okay.
It can't be nowhere.
No, but the idea when we say it comes from nowhere, what do we mean it comes from nowhere?
The physical.
Is that when it perceives its
Right.
source, right? So for example, the pool ball, the second pool ball that's running, it's got all this energy, it looks back and it sees it got it from the other pool ball, right? It knows where it came from. It knows when you have, for example, maybe a better analogy, but we talk about in Hasidus, you have chochma, you have intellect and emotions, right? The emotions all of a sudden get roused, and when they realize what's rousing them, there's some idea which roused them. And even though the idea is not, so to speak, emphasized at the moment that you're having an emotional experience, the idea is sort of forgotten. But when you think and pause and reflect, how did I get all excited? It was because somebody told me an idea. So they realize that the cause of the intellect is what made them have their effect. There's a recognizable direct relationship between the experience of existing and knowing where you came from, knowing where you got it from. Chochma does not have any perception whatsoever where it came from. It has no idea what made it, what the characteristics of the source were, right? And that's why it calls it nothing. It's yesh ma'ayin, because when it looks to its source, it finds zero clues as to how this came out of that, right? Because there's no trace of the cause in the effect, not one trace. So to the point that you just call it something from nothing. Yeah.
I'm not the last year.
Come sit with us.
It's like you hit a pool ball.
Avi, you gotta come around here, please.
It's like you hit a pool ball, which shoots another pool ball, and then it hits a third pool ball, which turns into a chicken.
Okay, there you go.
Why?
I like that. Okay. I like that. Okay, where'd you hear that?
Here.
In this class?
In this class.
Yeah, okay.
Ask Baruch might know.
Okay. All right, anyway, sounds like something I might say.
I think it was probably his radio.
Okay. Anyway, going on. So this is what the Indian of Yesh Ma'ayin is. So Chochma Ma'ayin Timatza. This is the relationship between Keser and Chochma. That the Keser is called Ayin. It doesn't have any relationship with the Chochma, seemingly. Whereas the Seder Ishtalshlus, or the cause and effect, the Ila Va'alul, this is what we call Yesh Miyesh, something from something. So when it goes to look at its source, it sees something. It sees where it came from. Albeit it's in a higher dimension, albeit emotions are not intellect, but they can realize how they were born out of the intellect. That's Yesh Miyesh. So the truth is, between every single world of Atzilus, Bria, Tzir, and Asiya, there is a Keser which is an intermediary between them. Because the Malchus of Atzilus turns into and becomes Keser of Bria, as it's known. And Malchus of Bria comes Keser of Yetzira. And the same Malchus of Bria, the lowest sphere of Bria, it turns into Keser of Yetzira, and so forth. But ha'hefresh bein Keser d'Atzilus leKeser shebechol olamos. But there's a big difference between the Keser above Atzilus to the Keser which is of all the other worlds. In other words, the Keser of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya. Ki yizhavus Atzilus hu aydei tzimtzum or ein sof. And that's because the coming into existence of Atzilus comes about through a contraction, a total contraction.
That's the first Tzimtzum?
Yes, that's the Tzimtzum Arishon. Of the orin sof completely. In other words, in order for Atzilus to come into existence, it's through the first Tzimtzum. Lios makom panoi v'chal al mamish. And what does this Tzimtzum make? It creates an empty space. Makom panoi means an empty space for chalal, a vacuum, right? A cavity, mamish, which is not the experience between the other worlds. In other words, if you want to go from Bria to Yetzira and Vayeira and furthermore, you don't have to basically remove all of existence in order to create the world of Yetzira from Bria. All you do is you filter the light a little bit. So instead of being, going through a curtain, it's going through a curtain and another curtain, right? But the idea is that you have the same light and you're just sort of tweaking it, minimizing it, so it can fit into lower and lower vessels. But that's not the case when it comes to trying to bring the infinite Orin Sof into the original vessels of the 10 spheres of Atzilus, namely Chochma as the first one. Because there, you can't just minimize the Orin Sof and filter it, and a little bit will go into Chochma. Because what would happen if you minimize a little bit the Orin Sof? It'll still be the Orin Sof. Right? Even a small aspect of infinity is still infinity. And therefore, if you try to put even a drop of infinity into the spheros of Atzilus, they will not be finite entities. They will not be Chochma, Bin, and Das. They'll just be infinite. And that's why we call it Yesh Me'ayin, because there has to be a zero, there has to be a nothing which precedes the experience of the 10 spheres of Atzilus. You follow what I just said? And so therefore, all the infinite light, every drop has to be removed. So there's nothing left. And this type of tzimtzum is the only place that exists. Such an intense tzimtzum is the first tzimtzum. When all the light is removed, and then a drop of light reappears, which is Chochma. From that drop of light of Chochma, which reappears all the way down infinite spheres until you get to here, it's all a drop of a drop of a drop. A little piece of Chochma is what you make Bina with, and a little piece of Bina is what you make, Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes. But there's no more removal of all the light. It only happens once in order to create the original spheres of Atzilus. Whereas the coming to existence of the lower three worlds, Bri, Yitzir, and Asiya, this is through a parsa. It's only through a curtain, not through an empty space, not through a removal. Parsa hamavsik bein Atzilus the Bria, and this is a curtain which divides between Atzilus and Bria, but it's merely a curtain. And being Bria li Yitzira, another curtain divides between Bria and Yitzira, etc. V'lo makom panoi, but there's not a need to remove all the light of Bria in order to engender the spheres of Yitzira. Let's say.
So Rabbi, let's say Atzilut is Yesh Mi'ayin and Bia is Yesh Mi'yesh.
Yes.
Okay.
So where's that light removed from? Where's it put?
So it's reabsorbed into the essence. Remember, the light to begin with was an extension of something from the essence. Because light, that's what it is. It's a ray, or infinite rays, which comes out to try to express the essence. So Hashem doesn't have to, unlike the sun, let's say, whose rays come out involuntarily, can't stop the sun can't stop shining just because it wants to, can't pull it back. But Hashem, there's nothing that forces him to do anything. So the fact that he released these rays and released this Orin Sof revelation, it's not an automatic like the sun, he has to shine. So he removed his shine, he brought the revelation of himself back into himself, and therefore what remains? What happens when Hashem pulls all the rays back in and you have this empty space? Is it really empty? What's in there?
The same. It was.
Well, there's something happened, right? Because
It went back.
so what's there now? In the place that there was light, what is there? Anybody?
A little bit of that original light, isn't it? You see a little bit?
No, that's the whole point. We took about every
Everything.
single thing. There's nothing left. So what's in that empty space?
Infinite nothing.
Oh, it's Cincinnati.
The Orin Sof is what he took out of the empty space. So Ein Sof is what's in that empty space, right? The Orin Sof is what shines from the Ein Sof. When he pulls the Or back into himself, what's left is the Ein Sof. So it looks like darkness and nothing is in fact the essence of God beyond the light. Right? You follow that? So this is, by the way, the sort of the main argument between, the Misnagdim and the Hasidim, or two different schools of Kabbalistic thought, that people wanted to say that you ever heard this concept that Tzimtzum is Kpshuto or Lav Kpshuto? Yosef, we're just in the starting. Tzimtzum is Kpshuto or Lav Kpshuto, right? What does that mean? You heard that before? You've heard the words, but not clear what it means. So this is exactly our conversation. Kipshuto means it's literally a removal of God. Right? Lav kipshuto means, chas v'shalom, how can you say God is removed from any place? There's no such thing as God not being in a place. Right? So he's there in a way where you can't see him, and on the contrary, then what you're really seeing, when you're not seeing him, is something even higher than his light. You're seeing his essence, like we just described before. So this is the whole idea, is God in the bathroom or not? Right? Because there's places of tuma and evil, so to speak. And if you want to say that the tzimtzum is pshuto, that in truth God removed himself, that means that this is not how we hold. That means that there's an actual concept that God is not in a place. So God is not in the bathroom, literally.
How does that place exist?
They're not so interested in that question, right? That place exists in some kind of it's very hard to justify.
So there could be a guy in the bathroom?
Right, exactly, something like that. In other words, there's the idea that since the tzimtzum was an actual thing, that there's a notion that Hashem removed himself and he's not there. Therefore, when you see darkness, when you see evil, what you're seeing is you're not seeing God. He's not in that place.
Good, like
how it exists, I'm sure they have some kind of a jimmied up answer for that. In other words, what enlivens it, I don't know. The absence of God, but literally the absence of God. Right. So So alternatively, what's in the bathroom, right? It's a concealment of God, and in truth, it's actually a higher version of the revealed aspects of God. In other words, evil, in a certain sense, is a presentation of an aspect of God which is beyond comprehension, which is beyond light, right? But it certainly is God. It's just what you're looking at is God in a way that's not revealed, right? And so because there's no place that doesn't have God in it, right? So when you're seeing a place that doesn't look like it has God in it, it's like the tzimtzum, where when God removes the light, what are you seeing instead of the light? You're seeing sort of His essence. And since His essence is beyond comprehension and can't be understood, so it looks like there's no God in that place because there's no revelation of God. So basically, this is like the famous joke, the Misnagdid says, like, and what, you want to say that God is in the bathroom? You're a heretic. God, how can you say God is in the bathroom? What kind of a way of that is to talk about God? So the chassid is back, and you want to say God's not in the bathroom? You're a heretic. It's basically you can't win that one. But the truth is that it's very mysterious why Hashem would hide Himself and create evil. But if you want to understand, the truth is that it is God. There's not two reshuyos. There's not two domains where there's God and the opposite of God or some other thing than God. It's just God is hiding. And again, why is He hiding? Because ultimately that's the only way that He can even present this essential aspect of Himself. If He would try and reveal His essence and show you what it truly is, right? There would be nothing. If you would, and not only would there be nothing, it's even more complicated than that. Because Hashem ultimately it's impossible to reveal His essence. Because when He tries to reveal His essence, what does He wind up with? Is orin sof. It's a light which tries to, in every way possible, to reveal the essence, and it always falls short. Because even if you're going to have an infinite light, which is shining infinitely to try and show you what this thing is, it's ultimately just light. It doesn't capture the essence itself. So it's almost like it's impossible, basically, for Hashem to show you the essence, because showing you the essence is contrary to what the essence is. It's something which, by definition, cannot be seen. So how can Hashem show you the essence? So it's a kindness. Hashem shows you the essence by showing you something that cannot be seen. He shows you darkness. By seeing darkness, you're not seeing it, but you're sort of making out something that's here, which is essence-like. So all the klippas and all the negative forces and so forth, they're actually more essence-like than the light, which is what we're basically saying all the time in Chassidus, that the animal soul is higher in its source than the godly soul. Right? And this is sort of the beauty of Chassidus, is that it sort of, it does the job of unifying everything, because there's really nothing other than Hashem. You're either dealing with Hashem as He shines, or you're dealing with Hashem as He's beyond shine, but there's nothing other than Hashem. You follow this? Yeah? No? Not really?
I follow. Just
if you're not paying attention, then it's for sure not going to follow.
Yeah?
What's that?
Just define evil in a way that is good for me, please. All right? Because that's the absence of Hashem, and it's really a higher thing. Yeah?
It's not the absence of Hashem in truth. It's the absence of the revelation of Hashem. And what do you have when you don't have the revelation of Hashem? When there's zero revelation of Hashem, what do you have? You have the empty space. And what's the empty space, really? It's the essence of Hashem. Why is it called empty? Because you can't make out what is the essence of Hashem. You can't describe it. It's not even. You can't even describe it as something infinite light.
So we're boxing darkness and evil into that frame.
So when it comes out and tries to show itself, something which is incomprehensible, when it shows itself and doesn't dim itself down into becoming something comprehensible, it tries to show itself in its pristine state, being incomprehensible. It looks like something you can't understand.
I give you that.
What can't you understand? Bad, right? You can't understand why a good God would make something bad. So what you're really seeing when you see bad is an aspect of divinity which is incomprehensible. It's God in a form which is incomprehensible. That is a higher form than seeing Him in a comprehensible state.
Are you saying that when something is less expressive, it had more essence?
Yeah.
Less revelation?
Yeah.
Like a rock?
Yeah, also that's true. The lower you go down the Hishtalshelus, the higher its source.
Well, we were talking about evil, right?
So you can go all the way down into evil. In other words, a rock, right? It's not evil yet.
Right.
But you can go lower than a rock, because a rock is klippas noga. You can go into a pig, and God forbid you can go into an Vayeira even, right? So this is that place where God is not, right? But in that same place where God is not, God is. It's just a level of incomprehensibility. Now, in and of itself, you can't say that is good, right? Because an Vayeira is not good.
Doesn't sound good.
But
Still,
it contains, right? It says a place where Bali Tshuva stands is afilu tzadikim gemurim einum yacholim la'amod sham. You can't, even a tzaddik gomer can't stand in such a place. So what does the Baal Tshuva have that tzaddik gomer doesn't have? I mean, come on, he's a tzaddik gomer. He has the ability to reveal the goodness inside of what was previously bad. In other words, he has access to the highest levels of Hashem where the tzaddik gomer can never touch that place. He doesn't have access to them while he's busy sinning, because in a sense, yeah, he's touching the essence, but he's touching the essence in an unrevealed way. So that's not good, right? That's just like it has the essence in it, but it's basically contrary to Hashem's will the way it's found in that sense. So it's not good. But if he'll transform himself and he'll do tshuva, he's able to transform those negative behaviors and turn them into positive by transforming his life from them. And therefore he's ultimately turned bad into good. So he has access to a higher level of divinity than the tzaddik gomer does. So in other words, just being a nefesh Bahamis versus the nefesh Elokis, if you just compared them as they are, as the nefesh Bahamis is in its broken, fallen state, it has a higher source than the nefesh Elokis, but it's not higher than nefesh Elokis because it is a fallen state. But if it does tshuva and you take your nefesh Bahamis and you make yourself a Beinoni or better, right? So then you've now taken something with a higher source and revealed that it is God, and therefore you revealed the essence of God. When it's not revealed that it's God, it just has a source from the essence, but it's not revealed its source. So it's in a state of darkness, so it's not good. But taking something who has a source in the essence and revealing, so in other words, what we're talking about right now, saying that the tzimtzum and the empty space is actually the essence, that itself makes it a wondrous thing. Because we've turned something which had the absence of God, which someone could have made a huge mistake and said, from there you see God is not in the bathroom. And we say, no, you don't understand. The very place where he's removing himself is godliness. We've turned that absence around into light, basically. We've come to show that you transform the source of the thing and reveal what it actually is. And that's the ultimate purpose of everything. That's why he made this world. He wanted to reveal the essence. So we had to, so to speak, show a whole realm of darkness, which is essence-like, right? But then when you show that the darkness itself is also godliness, i.e. a dira b'tachtonim, a dwelling place in the lowest world, so then you can actually reveal the essence. But it's not just leaving it as it is. That's not good. It's showing that the thing that it is actually God. You understand what I just said? It's a transformation of the darkness into light.
how do we transform evil into goodness?
By using it for Kedusha. Yeah?
This like a Jedi, Star Wars example, is that right?
Okay.
Okay, like in Star Wars, like there's the Jedi like temple guard, and they were like Sith, like they were on the dark side at one time, and they mastered all the dark arts and everything. But then they became Jedi, and now they guard the temple, like they protect the temple because they know all the dirty tricks, they know all the dark side of the Force, they know all the tricks, and they know how to use it. Yeah. And then say like maybe there's like a Vietnam vet or something, like somebody who's like patrolling the streets at night, like protecting, you know, the ghettos from like the other like thugs, and like, but he's actually like a protector, you know, he's like a guardian. So like I think that's the closest I can come to it, how you can understand like elevating
I get my head around
darkness to the level of like holiness or goodness.
We can't turn everything bad into good, can you? Everything?
You can. Yeah, that's the ultimate
Pigs
purpose.
And like idol worship?
Yeah, by not eating them
Yeah.
and by destroying them,
Okay.
you turn you do a mitzvah with them. When you do a mitzvah with something, what does mitzvah mean? It means to join. You join it back to its godly source. In other words, it looks like it's disconnected from God. It's not God. And it's in this situation where it's basically showing itself to not be God. You turn it into something which is godly by not eating it, by refusing it. In other words, by refusing it, what are you doing? You're doing a mitzvah with it. A mitzvah is lo saseh v'seder. You're doing a don't do, but a mitzvah is a mitzvah. So when you don't do something with a pig, i.e. eat it, so at that moment you're putting it in its godly frame of reference. You're putting it in a godly context. It's not just something which is opposing God. It's something which is actually serving God, because by a Jew not eating it, he's serving God. So you've taken the thing itself and you've turned this lowly entity into a divine entity. That's better than turning a high entity into a divine entity, because the high entity already looked like a divine entity, which means it didn't really capture Hashem's essence in it. Because only the lowest things capture Hashem's essence in it, because that's the only way Hashem can present His essence, by them not looking godly. So when you can turn something which doesn't look godly into a godly instrument, which is basically everything in this world, by the way, right? Because this whole world doesn't look like it's godly, and the whole service of Jews here is bichlal, this, right? So then you can turn every single thing into reality, into a godly entity. Not sometimes by partaking in it, sometimes by not partaking in it, sometimes by destroying it. But nonetheless, you're using it for God, and suddenly it is part of God. Okay, I think we covered that one, which is bichlal not part of the mimer, but that's okay. So anyway, you're doing all right there, Moshe?
Yeah.
You're following? Not following, huh? All right, you're going to have to run tape and go over the plays, play by play. All right, so anyway, we're saying like this. What don't you understand? You really don't understand?
Why? No, I'm just not here.
You're not here. Okay, you're in a makom panui. You're a halal.
Wow.
Okay, you're not here? You don't even realize it's a higher level than being here. Okay, hefresh bein parsha l'makom panui. What is the difference between the curtain and the empty space? Again, the curtain is what divides from Bria to Yetzira and the lower worlds. An empty space is what's required in order to make the original spheres of Atzilus. The orin sof has to disappear. What's the difference between them?
It's different because it's something.
What's that?
One is something from nothing, and the other one is something.
Right, but we want to understand more about the difference in these two tzimtzumim.
The curtain's filtered.
He says, Yuvan behektim inyan atzimtzum ba'or ein sof. First we'll understand it by understanding what is the tzimtzum in the or ein sof. And it's similar to what we have just talked about. Kihine or ein sof hainu or begilios eze his pashtus vis havus makor v'chayes. Right, so the or ein sof, i.e., what is it? It's a revelation to be an extension and a his havus makor v'chayes, a bringing into being, a source and life force, right? V'or ein sof sheba'atzmuso, right? And this is what it is. It's not the Ein Sof, it's the Or Ein Sof, which means an extension of the Ein Sof into being some kind of a source or a bring into existence of something. This is what the Or Ein Sof is. V'or Ein Sof sheba'atzmuso hainu b'chinas zu sheyesh ba or, and the Or Ein Sof in its essential place is this level that has light, lios meir mispashet lahavos lachayos, in order to come into a state where it's shining and extending itself to bring into bringing to being and to enliven. In other words, there's a state which was kind of beyond our comprehension entirely, but there is a state before the is of reality comes out of Hashem. In other words, there just is not, right? It's just impossible for us to even perceive anything what that is. But the idea is that before there's a concept of just the bare raw materials of just the isifier, right? That it could be as opposed to not be. This is the Or Ein Sof. That something comes out of Hashem in order to be the substance and the source from which all things can come from. That's already has to happen. It's not a given.
So you're saying there's Ein Sof with Or,
Yes.
then there's the curtain, and then there's Ein Sof again.
Whoa. I don't know. You're jumping into different. There's Ein Sof and there's Or Ein Sof, right?
And then
There's a
curtain.
tzimtzum. No, not a curtain.
Okay.
Then there's a complete removal of the Or Ein Sof. It goes back to nothing again.
So it's back to
The Or Ein Sof goes back to Ein Sof, right?
Ein Sof, Or Ein Sof,
Yeah.
Ein Sof.
No, nothing.
Ein Sof. Well, yeah. In that place
So
of
you
nothing,
have-
there was Ein Sof. That's
So you
right.
have two pools of God help me, Ein Sof.
Yeah, but it's not the same pool. In other words, nothing new doesn't happen. It's like something appears, which is this light and is, right, the being, and then it goes back inside and disappears again, altogether.
So what's the point of this process?
That's a good question, and that's the
What?
topic of many Maimarim, and we can get into that.
Which means that there's no one answer.
Huh? No, it's not so. No, it's there is one answer, but it's going to take me 15 minutes to explain it to you. So just let me hold off on that for a second. But the light comes out, the light goes back in, right? And then the light comes out again, but at this time it comes out as 10 spheros, right? The whole light doesn't come out again.
Is that
Just a drop of it,
Restricted.
which is basically an incomparable drop. It's so incomparable that we're basically saying it doesn't even come from there. That's the idea, that there's this emptiness in between. The emptiness in between is there in order to indicate that what comes back out is not really a drop of the original. It's something new. It's like a new thing which is incomparable to the thing that came before it. And from that new thing, Then it starts what we call the Seder Ishtalshlus. From there, you have 10 spheros, and then a curtain, and then 10 spheros in a lower dimension, and then a curtain, and it's all basically just filtered levels of that same minuscule light that came after the Tzimtzum. Okay? That's the whole order of reality, essentially. You got that? Alright, Moshe, you're back in. Alright, so, going on. Alright, now if you want me to try and answer your question, I could do it quickly maybe. He's saying, what's the point? What's the point of bringing out the Orin Sof, just to bring it back in, and then bring out like a tiny drop of it? Why not just bring out a tiny drop to begin with? Right? Yeah. Because it is clear why you have to remove it. Because if you didn't remove it, the worlds could never come into existence. It's too much light to create.
You take this little drop from it.
But still,
wait. In other words, the reason why it has to be contracted once it's there is sort of self-understood. Because from that level of light, Hashem could not make, finite worlds. But the question that one might have is then just bring out the finite light to begin with.
Why be redundant?
And you don't have to go through this whole concept of bringing out infinite and then putting it away and then bringing out finite. I know.
It's to bring the potential. If it was never there, then you can't have it there.
Right.
But if it was there once and you took it away, then there's a potential and you can always bring it there.
Yes. But what does it mean? The very good. You hit the nail on the head. But what does it mean? The potential. It means that when that light came out, understand, the drop which is going to create the 10 spheros, like in a minute, it's in there. It's just nullified out of existence in there, right? Because what's a drop in the middle of an ocean? But the fact that the finite world that we live in had once upon a time an experience of being totally nullified inside of the Orin Sof means that even after it comes out of the Orin Sof, even after the Orin Sof gets put away and it comes out by itself, it never forgets entirely that experience of, so to speak, being in the womb. Right? So it's been like what they call, the language is, there's a hechsher on it. It's been kashered to experience pure divine nullity, and therefore when that pure divine nullity is going to come back into it due to the avoda that it's done on it by refining it and making it supple enough to experience divine light, it can handle the infinite light because it already once was in there. You understand what I'm saying? Whereas if it just came out by itself to begin with, without being drowned in the Orin Sof to begin with, then there would be no room for the Orin Sof to get in there.
Is it like, for example, like when the baby's in the womb and he learns the whole Torah and then he forgets it?
Yeah, it's exactly like that. Because why is it exactly like that? Because I gave this sikh over in the Shabbos the other day. Because what's the idea about it? Is that if he would have just learned the whole Torah without learning it in the womb, he could have learned the whole Torah. But every Torah that he would have learned would have not had that experience of being like a Torah Milamayla. It would have been an earthly Torah which never would have experienced the Torah of the womb. But once he experienced the Torah of the womb and then comes back into this world, now that he learns the Torah again, he doesn't learn a Torah like a regular human being. He learns the Torah of the womb.
So we have the potential to make this physical spiritual.
Bittul Metzias and the Orin Sof Mamish, because it was already there once.
Okay.
Right? So that's the answer to that question. Okay. Going on. How you doing, B'Tzalel? You hanging in?
Awesome.
Great. All right. Zehu kodem shenivra olam hayahu ushmo bilvad. And this is what it means when we say that before Hashem created the world, it was Him and His name alone. We used to have a student named Alone.
What?
Even else has always stopped me with it. Him and His name alone. Right? But anyway,
Him, His name, and alone.
It was before Hashem created the world. It was just Him and His name by itself. Hainu who?
By his name?
That's exactly what we're saying now. What does it mean Him and what does it mean His name?
Yeah,
So who? Him is the Ein Sof Ba'atzmo. Him is the Ein Sof, not the Orin Sof. The Ein Sof, which is something dark looking, right? It's the essence.
Him is the Ein Sof?
Him is the essence, the Ein Sof. Shemo is Orin Sof. The Shemo is the name is the light that comes out of the Ein Sof. In other words, the infinite light is merely His name. And this again, tapping into what we were saying before, all that infinite light, it's really nothing compared to the essence itself. It never captures the essence. Let me just go back to a point that we made.
Is a light
ray of the sun.
Like a ray of the sun. So that going back to a point that we were in before, just to reiterate, that's why it's really not sufficient for Hashem to just shine the Orin Sof and think that He's really showing Himself. Because even if he's going to shine the orin sof, it's just a ray. He wants to show himself, but there's a problem, there's a catch. Even if you're going to show Ein Sof light, he can't show himself because that only comes out a ray. It's impossible to see Hashem. It's like an implicit contradiction. You can't see something which cannot be seen. And if I'll try and show it to you, it falls short because it's Orin Sof. Hold on, before you get to evil, right? If I'm going to try, when he tried to show it, it just came out as his name, Nebuch. It's nothing compared to him. In other words, he tried to reveal to you the Ein Sof, and it just came out as the Orin Sof, and it falls very short of actually doing the job of revealing the Ein Sof, because it's revelation. And meanwhile, he's beyond revelation. It doesn't cut it. So how does he show you something which is beyond revelation? He shows you something which is dark. And that's basically Klippa, a place where you cannot see him. And so, but it's the only way. It's like we're saying, well, Hashem, why did you do it to us? He's trying to give us his essence. Can we give him a break over here? It's the only thing he can do. Because if he shows you something good, you're not seeing him. Because good is already a drop down. Good means you can perceive it, you can get it, you can grasp it, you can understand it. Anything you can understand, grasp, and see, you're not dealing with him anymore. He's beyond grasping and understanding. The only way he can give us his essence is to create darkness, a world of darkness. Because that's the only place that actually captures him beyond comprehension. You getting this now?
Like,
So the point being is that, okay, it's fine, it captures him, it's him. But what is it good for anybody? You can't see it. In other words, that's not enough. But it's a good start. With that, we've got our raw materials. If we can only show that this darkness is actually him, then we've got it. Because the reality is, Hashem is, so to speak, essence and revelation at the same time. To himself, the essence is revealed. So once he has the essence out on the table, and we can become a Baal Tshuva, or we can become an earthly being wrapped in Gashmis and do a mitzvah. Mitzvah means the word join. So we can join the darkness to Hashem. We can make it the essence itself is actually revealed as godliness. And that's what the whole purpose of creation is.
and goodness.
It turns it into goodness in some way, right? It doesn't make it necessarily spirituality. It's still Gashmis, it's still physicality, it's still darkness. But you make it that the darkness itself shows Hashem.
It sounds like you're making like the higher level of God, darkness and evil.
Well, darkness, yes. Evil, no. It only becomes evil when it falls and he tries to show it to you. When it's up there by himself, he's not showing it to anybody. There's nothing. There's nothing but him. So it's darkness because, why is it called darkness? Because it's beyond the comprehension of any aspect of creation, even the Orin Sof. It's just Pashit, him by himself. That's why it's called darkness. So that's not evil, God forbid. That's the ultimate good, but it's just so good that it's beyond comprehension. But if he wants to show that, if he wants to let it out, he has one of two options. He can either let out light, but then he's not really him. He's not showing you it. Or he can let out darkness. Once he lets out darkness, he is showing you himself, but it comes out in a way where you don't understand what it is. So in that fallen state, as it were, that's not God anymore. And that's just the whole point. It's like a non-God entity. Right? That's the only way he can show you what he is, something to show you what's not, what looks like not him. But then transforming that is the name of the game. That's called a dir b'tachtonim. That's called making a Beis HaMikdash. What's the Beis HaMikdash? The famous word we're coming up on Yud Shvat one of these days, one of these months. The idea of the shtus, the kedusha. It says the Beis HaMikdash, the krashim, the boards of the Beis HaMikdash were made out of a wood called shtus, right? Atzei shitim omdim. Shtus means folly. Something which is not from this world. And dafka that is what you build the Beis HaMikdash out of. You can't build the Beis HaMikdash out of light. You have to build it out of folly. And don't worry, we've got plenty of folly. Right? Our whole being in this world, just existing as a human being in this world, is just folly. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. So everything you do for God here is building a Beis HaMikdash out of the shtus.
What did Moshe see then he saw God, or the back of God?
He saw the back of God.
What is that?
It means he didn't see his essence. He could only see light.
Which is he saw the orin sof?
Yeah, something like that. I mean, there's obviously drushes upon drushes about that. I don't want to just say it in a nutshell, but something like
no
that.
one else has been there, so can't really.
It's really like there's darkness and there's light, but they're still separated. So how can you say, you could say one is higher than the other, but wouldn't the ultimate be like having them joined together? Like,
Yes, and what does that look like? When the unexplainable becomes explained, right? When the darkness itself shines. Not the darkness shines something off of it, but the darkness itself shines. And that's exactly what we're describing. When you have this place of darkness, but you make it light. So that's ultimately what it's all about. Exactly what you just said. The fusion of darkness and light is one. Right?
Is it similar to the way in the the way that like a black light works? You know, like those.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean by that, but
like neon. Like I don't know how it works either, but it's like you walk.
Ultraviolet?
All of a sudden, it's like fluorescent.
anyway, one thing we can say is that this is also, by the way, what the whole concept of Hasidus is, right? Hasidus is here to bring Mashiach, right? That's not a secret. But it brings Mashiach because it follows this exact pattern, right? What's the whole concept of specifically Chabad Hasidus? What's the concept of Hasidus? Is that it's supposed to reveal the mystery. That which was mysterious, which represents the dark unknown. Baal Shem Tov comes and he says, I'm revealing the mysteries. But he reveals the mysteries in a way that no one really still understands them, right? The Chagas Hasidus is beyond comprehension. So even though he sort of brought the mystery, no one really could understand the mystery. When it comes to Chabad Hasidus, this is mamash the explanation, definition of Geula. Because you have the mystery, but it's also brought to light. The mystery as it is, there was things that we're reading right now, mysterious things that are beyond comprehension of man. What are we talking about? Beyond the Tzimtzum? Do you know that there were people living in the city of Sfat before us that they didn't even dare to talk about something beyond the Tzimtzum? Because it says in Gemara and places, there's certain things you're not supposed to talk about. There's beyond comprehension of human mind. You could go crazy. And here are a bunch of kids sitting around talking about beyond the Tzimtzum. Right? What are we doing? The idea, we're going crazy. The idea is that we've got Chabad Hasidus.
We're crazy.
Which means we're talking about something which is incomprehensible and we're understanding it. And that's exactly what the Geula is going to look like. It's the essence of darkness brought to light. So Hasidus just happened to do that. It's doing that because it's modeling the whole concept of what Geula is meant to be. The essence of darkness brought to light. Chabad Hasidus. That's what it is. It's not a joke. That's why when you learn it, you usher in the Geula. Because you're essentially doing to yourself what needs to be done to the whole world. Okay. We still have a few minutes. Let's go on.
So how do you do the whole world?
When you're doing it to yourself, you're part of the world. And so all of a sudden, part of the world has just had that experience. And more than that, you are now suited to give that experience to others. Right? And more than that, it has a Segula effect. In other words, that things happen mystically because of what a little group of people do in one room. They can bring Geula to the whole world just sort of because their powers are magnified.
Ripple effect, right?
More than the ripple effect, it's like
Cause and effect.
the Rebbe one time said there was a Rav from South Africa came into him, and he wasn't even much of a Rav. I don't think he was basically like one of the more learned Jews in South Africa, but it wasn't such a happening society of Limud Torah and everything. But he was really like a businessman most of his time. So the Rebbe said to him, "Listen, you have a huge job. I hate to be the one to tell you, but you're like a special person, and you've got to give over classes every day, and you've got to organize basically the whole South Africa into like a brand new world of Yiddishkeit, and you got to bring it alive over there." No, it wasn't Chabad. And the guy was like, "What? Like, what are you talking? Who are you talking to? Right, this is ridiculous. Like I'm basically a businessman." And and first of all, how possible can I affect so many people? It just doesn't. He says because you're thinking that affecting another Jew is like a chemical reaction, right? Where basically a chemical reaction is like two things come together and create a third thing. He says, but the reality is when you learn Hasidus with someone or Torah Bichlal, it's a nuclear reaction. When you hit two things together, the whole place around you is all of a sudden exploding. In other words, it's not what you think, right? So you think that you're just sitting here learning Torah in a little room and affecting one guy, and then that guy has to affect another guy. It's cause and effect. It's not like that. It's like mamash nuclear. You do something in a little room, and the entire region is completely transformed from this action.
Is a cause and effect.
Yeah, but
no, but it's like it's like
It's exponential. But
it's an exponential cause and effect. Okay, but it's not. He didn't say cause and effect. He said chemical versus nuclear. Okay, because there's no other. Yeah, in this world, there's nothing but cause and effect. We don't have like truly yesh ma'ayin that we can point to in this world, but as close as you can get, basically, right? So, last line here.
What is it that we're doing? What is it? Creating worlds or something?
We're creating this darkness to come to light. When you're learning, at least there's different things you do when you're learning different aspects of Torah. Nigla, Nister, Mishnah, Gemara, they all do different things. When you're learning Chabad Hasidus, you're doing that. You're bringing the unknown, and as it is, as an unknown entity, you're making it known at the same time. And that's basically the Geula. That's why Chabad Hasidus was brought into the world to prepare us for Geula. The more you learn it, the closer Geula comes. It's a simple formula. Tell your friends.
I still think that
We gotta spread
the Geula is uniting all the Jews.
Is what?